Hey everyone, welcome to the pod. I am coming to you from sunny London. I know that doesn't make sense, London and sunny, but around 6 a.m. somehow this sun is beaming right in my hotel room. Now, I'm in London because this week there is both CWS and WorkSum's Work Summit. And last week there was Freelance Unlocked in Germany. And so the event space is mirroring the demand of flexible work right now. If you're listeners of the show, you know that our industry is seeing 30% plus growth over year, and the event side is catching up as well, which is why this episode we have an industry OG, an industry pioneer in Pat Petitti, the CEO of Catalant. Now, Catalant is one of the first and one of the best consulting platforms. They've been able to navigate all the various waves, and as you'll hear in this episode, you'll hear how they're in front of the next wave. Now, not to spoil the end, but they are seeing 15 to 20% quarter-over-quarter growth, so things are going well. Also, though, they're really figuring out how to unlock the partner-level relationships. So when you think of flexible network, usually people think, okay, it's a bunch of individuals working on their own. Absolutely not. The best platforms have that expertise, that niche expertise, that partner, that hierarchy. They usually have that level of support, and Catalant is no different in that they can give you independent partners. So it's not just doing the work, they can also scope the work, manage the relationship, just like the big firms can. Now, before I spoil it too much, go enjoy the episode, but most importantly, go drive some change. Hey everyone, real quick, before the episode gets started, I want to tell you about what we just shipped. We just shipped the Talent Innovator Index, which is tracking exactly where you, your organization, or your client is on the flexible talent journey. Are you Luddites? Are you stuck in the corporate machine? Or are you a change maker? Or are you a disruptor? It's a simple 4-step questionnaire that takes you under a minute to figure out where you, your organization, or your client is, and I want you to go take it today. All right, enjoy the episode. Pat, okay, we're on. You need no intro. For you listeners out there, listen to Pat's last episode. You probably already have. Pat, I haven't told you it was top 5 all time.
Only top 5? Oh, man.
Yeah, I was going to say I promised I'm not flirting, but now I feel good getting you to actually question why you're not number one. And I won't tell you who's number one. It's a secret. I have to kill you.
Whoever it is, I'm coming for him.
Yeah, I like it. It's a Yankees fan, which will make you very pissed off. Nah, just kidding. Just fucking with you. But listen, there's a couple things that when I talk about you behind your back that I say, and one of them is the fact that you've been around forever. And so I've known about you since 2016. The second is that you've not, like we just mentioned, you haven't sold out, right? So you're still Catalant, you're still Pat, you're not sitting under somebody else. And I think the third thing is you've kind of always been ahead of the curve with what I would call zig and zagging. And so right now, everyone that's hopping on the AI train, it's probably because 6 months ago they haven't already done it or they don't have anything else where you have. And so Pat, just give us like a lay of the land, right? How's your past year been? How's life at Catalant? Yeah, give it to us.
For sure, man. Well, thanks for having me on again. So last year has been actually like really good, but we are driving a ton of change in the business. What we saw a couple of years ago, one thing that we saw, and this is really what has led to the changes that we're making. A couple of years ago, we saw that when the interest rates went up, a lot of our clients who are Fortune 500 and private equity backed companies, those companies started to look for alternatives to traditional consulting firms. And we experienced actually that like the middle of the organization clients and customers that we previously had lost budget very quickly, which was really hard for us. But on the flip side, the senior executives started to much more proactively look for an alternative to a traditional firm. And the reason was because of really two things. One is that those traditional firms are really expensive, and they were looking at where does their money actually go? How can they figure out how to better manage their resources? And that was one big bucket. But the other reason was because as they looked at that, they started to have a bigger appreciation for the fact that traditional firms are great at strategy work, but they are not very good when it comes to implementation and operational types of work. Because the reality is, like, what you're getting when you hire a big consulting firm is you're getting like the 113, like the partner who's going to spend 5% of his or her time on the engagement, the engagement manager or project leader who's going to spend 20 to 50% of his or her time, and then very smart but very young consultants who dedicate all their time to the project. So most of what you're getting, the work is really done by junior people overseen by senior people. And if it is operational or implementation in nature, the nuances of the business and like making it actually work and stick is what actually matters. And those people have no experience, like they have no working experience. So how in the world are they going to actually make the work and the implementation go well? And do you want, like, so I've the number of times I've heard of like a 25-year-old, spending time with the plant manager and the plant manager being like, you're going to tell me how I should change my plant operations? Like, it just doesn't work. And so that was happening a couple of years ago. And we just started to get unbelievable access to really, really impressive senior executives, CMO of one of the largest CPG companies in the world, the CFO of one of the largest cosmetics companies in the world, like unbelievable access. But the problem was that when we walked in the room and met with them, we couldn't develop the level of trust and credibility that a consulting firm partner can. Because, like, I've been leading Catalant for a while. I understand consulting 2.0. I know the industry incredibly well. But can I walk into a room with a CMO and understand what he or her really cares about and how to talk about their problems? No, like, I'm not the expert in any of the categories. And so we recognized that there was this huge opportunity, but the only way that we could actually deliver what those clients needed was to make a pretty big change to our model. And so that all leads up to the past year, which is we've made a very big shift where we still have a network of 120,000 independent consultants. And some of our work, we still use our marketplace to support that work. But we're actually shifting as much and as fast as we can toward what I refer to as a community-based model. And for us, a community-based model is where we have a subset of that 120,000 person network of a couple of thousand consultants. These are people who were former partners at Bain McKinsey. We actually get 15 in the past 6 months. Each of those months, we've had more than 15 former partners from Bain McKinsey and BCG apply to join our practice community. So we get former partners from large firms. We get C-level executives from the Fortune 500, directors, SVPs, people who we verify, we qualify, and we trust. We know them because they did great work before. We know them because actually increasingly a lot of our clients will tell us, hey, this person used to be the partner we worked with at McKinsey, or hey, this person is the partner we currently work with at McKinsey, but we know they're not happy. So why don't you send them an email? And those people come and they join the Catalant practice community. And the practice community, because they're vetted, they're qualified. We partner with them incredibly closely. We support a lot of, and we're building a lot of tools to support their setup and running of their consulting practice. We're also building out, and we built some tools to help them with delivery of the work. Because when you leave a consulting firm, you lose access to deliverable support. You lose access to market intelligence support. You don't know how to price your work. You lose access to L&D support, which we can deliver all these things. And then the third leg of the stool for us is really community, which is incredibly important because it is awesome being independent and it totally sucks to be alone. And so we can be, as much of your team as you want to be. And so that shift has completely changed the way that we operate, because now when I'm talking to a client, I don't, next time I talk to that CMO, I'm not going by myself. I'm going to bring the person who was, a partner at McKinsey in the consumer practice and has a specialty in sales and marketing. Or I'm going to bring, that consultant from our community who was a CMO at a consumer company for 10 years before. It allows us to just partner with our clients in a fundamentally different way. And what that's led to in the past year is a tremendous amount of growth. So I mentioned to you, we grew, about 20% Q4 over Q3. Prior to that, though, 16% Q3 over Q2, 14% Q2 over Q1. And the reality is, we've been going through a pretty big transformation and a lot of change, and we've done 2% of it. But all the things that it's required to do this, changing the way we think about our data infrastructure, changing our product flows, changing our go-to-market, our messaging, our positioning. We're hiring too, because we need people who can help us accelerate this change. So it's been a great year. It's been a busy year. I've probably gained a lot more gray hair over that period of time. But it's a lot of fun, and I feel like we're just on like the precipice of really starting to win share from big firms, and that's always been the mission.
You know, it's a fun, Pat, is like we can see both of us getting older. And so you don't look like you're getting that much older, but I know I'm probably looking like getting older. But I got a funny question, and Tony. I'm gonna actually throw you a zinger, see if you actually know it. But my question for you, Pat, is going to be if you feel like we're in like the next talent wave and the next talent transformation wave. And but before I ask why I'm saying this, Tony, do you know what Catalant's original name was?
No.
Guess. Take a guess. I'll give you a hint. Two HBS boneheads walking around to small business shops, being like, "Hey, will you pay for this?" Guess what they paid for? The name was. Guess what the name was they paid for?
I have no idea. Experts for hire.
You got to bring this shit up. You're pretty close, actually.
You gotta bring-
You know, we actually, the original name we tried to get was Rent a Nerd. That's pretty close. Yeah, real funny, Matt. And then we ended up with Hourly Nerd because it was the domain. The way we came up with it, a bunch of us, it was a class project. We're sitting around my computer, and the guys are shouting out name ideas, and I'm just checking is the domain available, and Hourly Nerd.
Yeah. And I have an email from Pat at Hourly Nerd.
Oh God,
yeah, I'm keeping that forever, Pat.
We do a lot of events with clients, and like we have a dinner. We did a dinner a couple of weeks ago in New York with chief procurement officers, Fortune 500 companies. We have another one coming up with chief strategy officers of Fortune 500, and at the chief procurement one, somebody was like, "Hey, are you guys the same company as Hourly Nerd?" And I was like, like wash that out of your brain, please.
Yeah, that's never going out of my brain, Pat. But the reason I bring that up is because you have seen like each wave. It seems like 2 to 5 years ahead, and you've changed really quickly, right? So like when I was a little shit grad student, you were called Hourly Nerd. When I was at Microsoft, you were really digging into how to build the right platform. And now you're really, what I would say is migrating away from the marketplace, just like the whole talent landscape is as well. But so are we in like a new wave? What the hell's going on? Because also the reason I reached out to you this morning or yesterday morning was literally like, Pat, can you please talk about AI? What the hell's actually going on? But so does it feel like there's a new wave, or are we still in consulting?
Definitely. I mean, I think all of the things happening, COVID was an accelerant for one part of that wave, because what I think COVID did was it made it so that people got way more comfortable working with somebody who they might never be in the same room as. Like I look at our data, like I have the data on how often when people hired a consultant through Catalant prior to COVID, how often was the work in person? And then of course, during COVID, the work in almost entire, we actually had a couple projects where we had people at manufacturing facilities helping make the masks. But beyond that, like everything was remote. And then coming out, you saw it like get back to like a 50-50 balance. So that was a huge accelerant. It just made it like people adopted things like Zoom. People felt a lot more comfortable working remotely, using cloud-based applications to collaborate, all that stuff. So that's one big piece. What I think is happening now is that all of the disruptions that are happening in the macro environment, and that have been happening since the interest rates went up, all of those things are forcing companies you need a forcing function for large companies to think about how to operate differently. If everything is just going, right along, they're not going to disrupt themselves and change how they think about doing work. They're just going to continue to do the same. But when you have all of these like macro events that make it so that the company is under a ton of pressure, it does two things. One is it forces them to think about all of the different ways that they might need to operate so that they can be more operationally effective. And the second thing is it gives them an excuse to make a ton of change, because these are companies where like executives oftentimes are pretty risk averse, because why rock the boat? But when you can go to your board and be like, we have no choice but to make this change, and you can talk to your company about the fact that you need to make this change because of the environment, it gives you the room to do it. And so those two things, I think, are allowing companies to do the thing that like is pretty damn obvious when you look at it. Like, of course, you should be leveraging people who are independent, and you should be thinking about, regardless of where they are, like it might be a team from Catalant instead of using McKinsey. Would you rather a team of like 7 people who the majority of the people doing the actual work are 25 years old? Or would you rather a team of 4 people through Catalant where every single person has 20 years experience or more? 2 of them were associate partners at leading consulting firms, and 2 of them were operators. You're going to get better ideas. You're going to get a better answer. It's going to cost half the price. But the reason you're going to do it is because it's better quality. Same exact thing for a bunch of different parts of the talent landscape. And so I think you're seeing acceleration for that reason. And that is colliding with the fact that you have AI. And AI is just such an interesting element on top of this and is creating a ton of uncertainty on top of it for a number of reasons. But I think that the fact that you're in this macro environment allows companies to lean into AI and think about how to use it in a more aggressive way. And then with AI, I mean, you're going to have all kinds of work that is disrupted for sure. It's already happening. Like, copywriting, of course, like you're going to still need people because someone's going to have to look at that content and make sure that it looks right and use the tools, but you're going to need far fewer people. And the best copywriters will be the ones who know how to leverage these tools and make themselves more effective. That's like the simplest example. But I think about it, all of my experience and where I focus is in the consulting world. Think about consulting. Like, so you've got that team from, a large consulting firm. You've got the partner who spends 5% of his or her time. You get the engagement manager, 25% of their time. Then you've got the team of junior people. What are those junior people actually doing? They're interviewing people at the client, and they're interviewing people at the client, and they're organizing the insights from those interviews. They're analyzing data. They're doing market research. They're going into AlphaSense or PitchBook or whatever, depending on the engagement, to get the right data and the research. They're putting it together. They're putting together comprehensive presentations. Everything that I just described is something that AI can do. Every single thing is something that AI can do. And so if you're an independent consultant now, let's say that you're somebody who you could have gone down that path to be that senior partner at the large consulting firm, but instead you said, you know what, I don't want to go down a path where I'm much more of a business development person. I love doing the work, so I'm going to go independent because I want to do the work, which is the people who join Catalant. Now that former associate partner or partner can use AI to do all of the things that the analyst did. Literally everything that the analyst would give them, they don't need them on the project. So that gives that individual person or small team of people an insane amount of leverage, and it allows them to focus on what they are very expert in. So that's the question. Would you rather 100% of time from two people who have solved the problem before? One was a former partner, one was, former operator. Or would you rather 100% of time from 25-year-olds and a little bit of time from the people who have actually done it before? It's a no-brainer. There's so much more leverage when you have AI as a tool. And I think that applies to a lot of other work where, there's certainly types of work where it kind of like removes a lot of the job, but it's the people who understand that subject matter best who are going to be the ones that know how do you use that tool most effectively to build a lot of leverage and to deliver a lot of value.
I kind of want you and Tony to fight on like why do this and why not do this from like a corporate perspective. Tony, what's your gut reaction? Because the tough part, Tony, is you like are actually bought in, so you're not going to give me the full tea of like this is all full.
Yeah,
of
like I'm not going to push
things.
back on what Pat just talked. As Pat's talking, Pat, we've had this conversation before. What's frustrating is we can see the forest for the trees. We can see all of this, all these macro circumstances coming. There's going to be a forcing function. The sad part is, why couldn't we get you to do this before you were in the middle of the storm? I always think of Jim Gaffigan has this really great joke about he's got all these kids, like 5 or 6 kids. And he always says when people say, what's it like having 6 kids? He'll say, imagine you're drowning in the deep end of a pool and then someone hands you a baby. Like that to me is the visualization I got when Pat's talking about all these macro circumstances, which I 100% agree with, that are creating so much uncertainty and so much pressure in the marketplace that arguably is only going to get worse over the next several months as inflation creeps up. And why is it then that you're like, oh my God, like now that it's so crazy, I'm going to take this baby and try to figure out if I can navigate this all by myself? The truth is sometimes you need that forcing function.
Exactly.
Because it's only in those circumstances that people get really serious about breaking down the P&L and trying to find out where they can get a squeeze and still get the work done. But man, if they had just adopted this 6 months ago or a year ago, the agility, the ability to respond and pivot would be immediate. And it would be at a point where they can absorb it rather than force it. And then, the biggest challenge, and I think you agree with this too, Pat, but tell me if you don't, the biggest challenge is just the change management. You're working in a way that you haven't been used to before. And so getting everybody to adopt to that, to think differently about the work and the way it's resourced, that's an adjustment. Again, to do that while you're in the deep end drowning is even harder than doing it when you feel like things are a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
And that's what I just constantly plead to organizations, enterprises to do sooner than later, because wouldn't you love that ability to shift and adapt when you need it, like to be able to do it immediately versus build the capability while you're already drowning.
I completely agree. I think there's so many things that make it hard for companies to do the right thing all the time. You know, like certainly it's I think what you said, like the change management associated with it and the fear of like, will you be able to do it well, is like probably number one.
Yeah.
But you also have, you know, if you're a public company, you're reporting quarterly. It's like really hard to think about long-term changes and what the implications are. And really good management teams do it well, but you know, most management teams are not really good, and so it makes it hard to do. But you think about like a startup. Like a startup is pivoting all the time. Like we have that conversation internally. People are like, man, there's a lot of change going on. It's like, hey, like when you look forward, it doesn't look like the change, like the growth or the change is that much. But when you look backward, you're like, this is a steep freaking hill, you know, because like the only way that you're successful is that you're constantly changing, you're constantly adapting, you're not afraid of, like, there are no sacred cows, you know. And I think for companies, it is very difficult unless you've got some kind of forcing function to be like, no, there's no sacred cows now. But I've seen it, like, it's almost always the case though, that when a company has performed really badly and you get a new management team, and now the new management team has an opportunity to do it. And even then though, I've seen the same thing time and time again. Even then, depending on, you know, how many people on that management team are new, and do they feel like they've got room to fail? If they don't feel like they have room to fail, then you're still going to get the same old thing. You're going to get like a half change, and it doesn't do it.
Further to that point, even when you change the management team, the board typically hasn't changed that much.
That's
and
right.
The board is looking for that brand to give them the confidence, the trust that the McKinseys and Bains and BCGs had built over a long period of time.
Totally.
They've had their badge and their logo on transformations, M&A integrations, whatever it might be, for decades. And so you could work with, you know, this kind of new way of working and try to sell that internally, even if your management team is on board. If the board itself, especially for public companies, is resistant, you're probably going to lean into what's going to be the path of least resistance, which is using that brand. That they're fine when you write $100,000 checks, but they know what the reputation is. When, even though it might be the same talent, it feels a little bit shaky, and so they're less likely to get behind it and further support.
I think that applies in just every part of the decision making that a management team makes, right? Like, I think we've talked about this before. The makeup of the board. It's a really great point, because the extent to which they're letting the management team feel like they have room to go and make change and enter into a period where you don't know exactly what the timing is really going to be, and you don't know exactly what the outcome is going to be, and you need to trust a process. That's a damn hard thing to do if you don't have a really strong board who's giving you room to do it, particularly if you're a public company.
Which it happens. It's just few and far between.
Totally few and far between.
Yeah.
But the teams, that's where the opportunity is, though, right? The opportunity is always in the things that you know you should do, other people are afraid to do, and the willingness to like go and take a risk. But you know, you hear about like I've had a lot of investors over the year talk about wartime and peacetime CEOs, and I've always been kind of like, you can probably guess what type of CEO I am. I'm definitely a wartime CEO, but like, and I always used to think, well, why can't you just always be in wartime? Like, shouldn't you always be in war? Now, the reality is you do need to like stop and pause and learn and let people catch their breath. But I think the problem is you don't have enough of like the wartime mentality in large organizations.
So, Tony, if I do this, do you know what I'm referencing, by the way? So Pat and I have shared ancestry, that our ancestors just decided to say fuck it and throw tea to like be pissed off and be wartime CEOs. So like that's totally, Pat, we're shared on that. Totally not surprised at all. Although I'm going to totally mess with you because you went to Harvard, so you can't be that much of a wartime CEO.
Oh man, come on.
I know. I already messed with you about early nerd. But so I think, you know, this next section is gonna kind of balance and cross a lot of things we were talking about before, and that's going to be the who section, meaning who are the people actually driving change? What are they doing? But like, who are the real change makers and real leaders that are grabbing this and driving success? And honestly, I just want to fall in love with them. So our shared goal together, Catalan and Human Cloud, and everyone listening to this podcast, most of them are enterprise executives that are interested. Maybe they've taken the leap, but they want to get to 10 million in scale or 100 million in scale, or they haven't fully taken the leap and they're like, how the hell did this person do it? Right. So, from your perspective, and the beauty here too, Pat, is you have the largest visibility of these people. And then Tony has the internal talent side to be like,
Yeah.
oh, this was happening on our end. So, who who's actually grabbing this change? Is it the CMO? Is it someone in talent? Is it like who's grabbing this from your perspective, and what are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends. I don't think there's anybody who's responsible for this. If you have in some cases, you have somebody who's got like the transformation title or somebody in strategy. If you have a really strong strategy leader, then that's probably the most common that I've observed. But I don't see any commonality around title. Like I was, I was saying before, I think oftentimes it's very hard for HR to lead the charge in these types of things. But on the flip side, 2 weeks ago, I was with a new CHRO of a large Fortune 500 company, and the way he was talking was completely different. But I think it's an example of like when you're new to the role, you're operating in a different context, you're able to define things your own way, and you have like a license to drive a ton of change. So I think generally, though, for me, it's the person who is not at all afraid to drive change. Like I've seen a lot of people where they were brought into the organization, particularly in somewhere in the strategy or transformation function, where they were brought in because they knew that they needed somebody who was willing to come in and shake things up a little bit. And that person has a background where it's pretty obvious that they're going to do just that. And they also are in a position where they're like, hey, if a year from now people don't like it and they let me go, whatever, I don't care. Like you need somebody who's that. I talked to somebody, 2 months ago who had that exact same mentality. And I was like, yeah, this is a person who's had a ton of success in his career. He understands the consulting industry really well. And you know what he's thinking to himself is like, I have an opportunity to have huge impact, but only if the organization wants to come along with me. And if not, then like no skin off my back, I'm fine.
That is
Yeah, I think
fascinating.
too, Pat. I had the same kind of wavelength of thought. It's not so much the function or position. It's really, I mean, maybe it's a little bit position because you have to be in a
Be high
leadership
enough.
role, I think, to really
Yeah,
drive it. But it's more the person that has the characteristics that they can drive that change, which importantly includes influence. Because it's one
totally.
thing to be fearless in driving the change, but if you can't influence at least other leaders, you can't drive the understanding of that strategy throughout the organization, then you're going to be running out way ahead of the crowd, and they might not be close behind you in terms of backing you up to get on board and to fight. So I really think that influence is really important. And I think, Matt, to win, I was at Stanley in trying to bring, freelance or independent work in. I think a lot of the reason I was able to do this because I had already worked there for 10 years in HR roles and had success and turnarounds and things like. So people were like, okay, if you're passionate about this. In fact, the CHRO at the time, still a mentor of mine, when I got all excited after going to WWL and I was like, this is something we need to do, he was like, Tony, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're so passionate about this, you got to get in front of the rest of the HR leadership team and see if you can get them on board.
I
And that's
love it.
exactly what happened. And
I
that
love it.
that
I
I
can
think
also
is
totally picture
what
that.
it takes. Yeah,
That's
and I
awesome.
haven't stopped
Yeah.
since then.
I fully agree with you, man. I mean, I think you couldn't have said it better. Like, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think you need people who are able to bring the organization along. And then I think that if your company is in a context where there's a need for change, you've got like the room to go and do it. And I think that's one of the benefits of where we are right now with the market. Like everybody knows that things have to change. With the tariffs, for example, every company I talk to is, in a period of uncertainty. No matter what, it seems like we are going to have an increase in tariffs. That means that there is going to be that's problematic. You either have to increase your prices or you have to increase your operating expense.
Or both.
And yeah, probably both, which means that what you're focused on right now is how do we deliver more value for the products we give if you're in a market where you can do that, or how do we build more operating leverage into our business? both of these things require outside thinking, and you get operating leverage if you can be a lot more effective in how you think about using your resources. That's kind of it.
So I have a really dumb question, Pat. Ready? And hopefully it's like also very tactical. And literally, the high level is how do I justify the budget? Like that is the high level question. Is like, hey, I have this budget right now of $1 to $25 million,
Yep.
or even if I have a big budget, but I have to justify it to the board. But so, how in the world do I justify this budget? Are there things that I can grab onto? For example, hey, everyone's talking about AI. Well, this is an AI driven talent transformation. It's a 150K pilot. But have you seen any hacks to enable enterprise executives to start to unlock that budget?
Well, to me, you have to basically sell into something that has budget associated with it. So, for example, like if the company has a large transformation going on, like the job of the head of transformation often includes like a big part of that job is finding the right external resources to help drive the change. And easily, something related to like a talent transformation could very much be a part of that. For what we do, we are almost always we call it consulting 2.0 because we think it's a more flexible, fairly priced, better fit to purpose form of consulting. And so you might use Catalant for one person, you might use Catalant for a team of up to 30 people. It might be a week, it might be years, anything in between. But almost always the client is looking at us relative to consulting firms. And so they probably have budget associated with it. In my experience, though, the budget is not the limiter. The thing that drives it 100% of the time is how important is the work and how high quality is the Catalan solution relative to the alternative. And they will save money when they use Catalan instead of a traditional consulting firm. But I've never had it be the case that the decision, particularly at like the SVP or C level, is made based on cost. In fact, like I oftentimes will go back and spend time with our clients and just say, hey, do you mind just giving me a little bit of information on how you thought about using Catalan? And I have never had them say, when they talk about the criteria, the cost. I always have to say, do you mind sharing with me what our cost was relative to X? And I had this happen recently. And the client was like, I don't remember. Like, let me, and opened up his computer, types away for a minute. And then he goes, oh, shit, you guys were less than 40% the cost of firm X. And you know, in my head, I'm like, oh man, like, what are we doing? But the reality is like they pick based on quality. That's it. You know, now I like having a model like the what's always important to me. And I think, you know, this is sort of how I like to operate internally, externally as a human being is we have a ton of transparency. And so the fact that our model works this way, where we just take a percentage of the project and most of the money goes into the pocket of the person who actually does the work, which to me is like the right way it should be. I love being able to have a model that's transparent and fair, and the person who should get the money gets the money. So, you know, the pricing, the cost doesn't matter to me, but what really matters to me is being able to prove every time that we're going to deliver the best value, because I think that's what they care about.
I love it. So, listen, the last thing I want to ask you, Pat, is sort of what can we expect over the next 2 years, which is also a broad question because it's both in terms of a Catalant perspective. Also, what should our clients be expecting? Where are they going to be sitting in 2 years? Is their company even going to be around? And the last thing I do want to call out is, dude, we haven't mentioned AI at all from a context of, look, we are this brand new company that has an AI solution. And I just want to call it out. Like that is so refreshing, especially because I've seen a bunch of expert networks and kind of consulting networks start to go more into like the agentic AI of like, look, we're going to get rid of all of our people and it's going to be all AI agents. And I'm like, wow, that was really fucking stupid. But I'll get in trouble for saying that. But so give us the 2 years. What can we expect from you, from the market, you think? Give us, yeah.
I think the job of the consultant slash like analyst, a junior consultant, is going to not entirely go away, but 90% of it's going to go away, because look at what's happening with all of the data providers. They 3 years ago we tried to partner with, you know, a long list of market data providers, and none of them would partner with us because it was too difficult for them to give access to independent consultants because they needed to train and onboard people to use their product workflows. Well, guess what? Like those product workflows don't matter anymore. They built APIs, and the way that you partner with those data providers is you build an API and you pull the data in. And so all of a sudden, like those people are realizing like where this world is going, which is You should be able to access the data that you need to be able to do the research, and all of that data is available out there. You can use tools like, have you guys used deep research?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gemini deep research is
Insane.
truly unbelievable. Actually, Grok is unbelievable too. They're all unbelievable. I mean, incredibly good. That is like half of what an analyst does. The data isn't there. Those solutions aren't at a point yet where you can fully trust what the information is. But for Catalant, like, we're going to combine external LLMs, external publicly available data, and private data that we can purchase alongside Catalan proprietary data, because we have a ton of really, really interesting data based on all the conversations and work that happens with our clients. And that is going to provide a differentiated solution to independent consultants so that they don't need to use analysts for their work. Catalan can provide them all of the analyst solution. And we're doing it because we want to let those people focus on what they're really good at and deliver their value in a really differentiated way. So, like, I think the consultant and the analyst is deeply disrupted. I think that's going to have a big impact on consulting firms. Some firms have been really good about productizing what they do. Like, you can see that with a lot of like the top firms. Like Accenture does an unbelievable job of that. BCG. I think that's where consulting firms are going to have to move toward. Because the reality is, like, if you are somebody who's really expert in something, you're going to be able to do the work with a much smaller team, and you're not going to need the junior people. In consulting firms, the model is built on based on the pyramid. And so if the bottom of the pyramid disappears, there's no way to make money. I think that AI for our clients is going to become a core part of their business. The thing that companies need to be thinking about right now, which we're thinking about a lot, is data. It is, what kind of data do you have? What kind of data do you have access to, but you're not actually capturing it? And how do you set up your data infrastructure so that you're going to have the right type of data in a way that's accessible and organized in the right way? The beauty is that it used to be that you needed to organize your data in this like deeply structured way, and then if you wanted to change it, it was a huge pain in the ass. That's not the case anymore. Like, the structure doesn't matter. It's really just like, capture the data, make sure it's associated in the right way, make sure you understand it, and then set yourself up to be able to use it. Because I've talked to a bunch of people about this. A lot of the ways that you experience working with a product or a technology solution today is going to disappear. What really matters is the data. And then I think the community becomes the key part of it. So, like, for us, we are completely doubled down in the community. We're more than double down. It is all about relationships, community, and data. And if you have those things, you can deliver a differentiated consulting solution. But I think all clients and all companies are going to experience their own version of this, which is, you got to have the data. Your solution needs to be data oriented, and you have to rethink the way that you deliver value. Like, that's going to happen all over the place, unless you're selling like a hard product. That's going to happen all over the place.
So Pat, I would put the Harvard bow on relationships to community to data, because I know in 15 years there'll probably be some case study that's like the diagram they show. It's like instead of the Porters or the Christensens. But I think one thing that I want to make sure I call out, because every time we have you, it basically like lays out the next 10 years of where work is going. And I think
it's easy to say this stuff because you can't prove me wrong for 10 years.
It's true. I mean, Pat, this is consulting. I was kidding. This is consulting. But what you're talking about actually really, really crystallizes a lot of what I've seen in terms of, okay, like, what is this next wave? And I do think it's the wave of ownership. And what I mean by that is that, and I'll give you like really quick example. So before we met and I was consulting myself with small businesses as a freelancer, I loved the immediate impact that it had, right? And it was like me who owned that work and me who owned that results and me on the relationship. But then when I started, and I won't say the company, but when I started in the Hancock, all of a sudden I was like, wait, I'm just like basically like a data person over here, just like giving stuff. And I was like, fuck this. I'm going to jump back into what I loved, which was a direct relationship and ownership. So I think that's the bow. Tony, I'll give you any final thoughts on your end, Tony.
I mean, I agree with what Pat said. I would put a big emphasis on that data piece. And I like, Pat, that you really touched on, hey, look, your data doesn't have to be perfectly organized. It's more important that you're collecting it, because, you know, you're talking over the next couple of years. In 6 months, you might want to get to data that you never dreamed that you'd want to get to, or link it to other data that you didn't think you'd be using. It's going to evolve so rapidly. Just making sure you're collecting data that could be valuable so that you know you can package it or repackage it down the line. you're going to derive insights that you never would have predicted. And as the economy, as the markets, as the workforce is constantly changing, which it will just constantly change, even over just the next 2 years, you can be repositioning that and adapting and adjusting it. And I think that's where we spend a little bit of time in this conversation, building adaptability into your organization, into your workforce, into your business plan. That's all going to be more and more critical every year. So having partners, resources, strategies that enable that is absolutely critical, not just right now, like we started the conversation. We're heading into the middle of the storm, and you really need this now. Hopefully you had it 6 months ago, but stop putting it off, because building out those capabilities is more critical now than ever. And I don't think we're going to get to some plateau where it's like, okay, well, we went through that and now everything's smooth and easy. It's just going to continue on this trend, and companies that adapt are going to survive, and companies that don't will disappear.
Yeah, you had like years ago this push for agile transformations at large companies. It's funny, I've heard the term come up more often recently again, actually. I hadn't heard it for a while, but that's what it's about, is like, how do you put yourself in a position where you don't know what's going to happen, but you know that you need to act. You don't know what the exact outcome is going to be, but you need to be in a position where you can trust in the process, because your company is really good at experiencing, learning, testing, iterating. And like, that's kind of it. And it's not just at the company level, it's at the individual level for sure. Yeah. And I think all of this is really, really good for the individual. Like anything, there's going to be periods of time where it's going to be harder for certain individuals than others. But in general, it's really good, because we're going to have access to information in a way we never did before. We already do, but it's only going to get better. We're going to have access to tools that can help us get better faster. We're going to have access to tools that help us learn way more effectively. Yeah. We're going to have access to tools that like let us know what the real truth is on something, and not just a bunch of different opinions. Like, you can cut through to what the reality is. These are all really, really good things for people and for humanity. But it's the people who lean into it and know how to adapt with it and take advantage of it, and aren't afraid of it, that are going to be the most successful, like anything.
I love it. Well, Pat, thank you as always for hopping on. In the show links, don't worry, there's going to be all the links and everything for you listeners. Let's get Pat to number 1 this year. We'll see.
Yeah, what the hell? Give me a break. I want to know. You got to tell me who beat me. I want to know.
After I hit stop, I'll maybe tell you. I don't know.
I'm going to study this, and next time I'm coming hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I listen, lobster rolls are like $50 now, so I'm not going to tell you until I get a free lobster roll.
All right, we're gonna go pump this. I'm gonna go buy a bunch of ads on LinkedIn and pump this or something.
Perfect. All right, man. Thank you so much for hopping on, Pat.
Yeah. Good to see you guys.